think it's important to recognize that we have a big problem that we're trying to address in the United States. So part of it's jobs, and part of it is wealth and income inequality. So when I was growing up as a kid in the 70s, top 1% of Americans had about 8% of income. And today it's closer to, depending on how you measure it, 17 to 20%. So it's more than doubled. So per capita GDP is doing just fine, but wages actually are pretty much the same as they were 40 years ago. So that's pretty stunning if you think about it. And so part of what you're trying to do is create a value creation chain that will benefit those of low and moderate incomes, in part by creating opportunities for ownership by folks of low and moderate income. If the returns to labor are at a record low and returns to capital are a record high, there's only two ways to address that. Either you somehow get those returns to labor up, and certainly I think many in this audience would want to see that. But the other way, is to go with, to change to who owns those businesses. And anchor institutions have I gave the example of the anchor hitting on your head. They've often been at loggerheads with communities, even though their interests are with, it requires a strong community to have a strong anchor institution. The CEO of Cleveland Clinic, points out, Cleveland's in our name. If the city of Cleveland's not doing well, that hurts us in terms of recruiting doctors or getting patients from outside the area to fly in for elective surgery and those kind of things that are important to the business model. But you need a conscious strategy to shift that. And the reality is that the strategy to date has been to go for the lowest cost almost no matter what. So if you looked at the Cleveland Clinic, for that matter, in the 1950s, most of their procurement would have been local by, naturally. What shifted was a shift to group purchasing organizations, and so more and more of the spending actually goes away from the neighborhoods. We're starting to see the limitations of that strategy, but scale would really be where the model is to look for those opportunities and create the, look at the supply chains, systemically of these institutions, which, do have $1 trillion worth of purchasing collectively, and where there are opportunities to support local business development, do so. And I think if that happened, you would in fact create, hundreds of thousands of jobs in low-income communities and begin to shift some of those numbers.